body has been first built up by conserving the life forces until the cells are of a finer texture than the lower order of person who has dissipated the life force. By this time the genius has risen to fame, and not having developed his deeper perspective or God power, is carried away by self-glory. He forsakes his guiding light because he has not been fully awakened. In the urge for greater excitement, he begins to dissipate the life forces and quickly loses all power. For if man does raise his thought above the animal passions and conserves the life forces until the body has begun to take on the finer texture, then allows himself to fall back, he will go back much more rapidly than one that had not been thus awakened. When one has been awakened so that he will conserve all the life forces and let them be distributed to the nerves in the natural way, then let them go coursing along the nerves to every atom of the body without deforming it with thoughts of sex lust or passion, the exhilaration will be permanent and the sensation will far transcend that of sex. The serpent will be lifted up and will no longer need to crawl on its belly through the murk and mire of lust and passion. If man could understand that this life fluid is many times more vital than a corresponding amount of pure blood, he would conserve instead of dissipate it. But he shuts his eyes to this fact. He may be entirely ignorant of it, and goes on either in blindness or ignorance until the reaper arrives. Then a wail goes up, for he does not admire the harvest. You look upon old age with veneration, and snow-white locks as a crown of honor, which I would not detract from in any way. But as you look upon the picture, I leave it for you to decide which is the more to be honored, he with the snow-white locks, who has by ignorance or direct perversity brought decrepitude upon himself, or the one who in maturity becomes more vital, strong, and better equipped to meet the advancing years, and because of them is more kind and generous. I recognize that the one who reaches the end through ignorance is to be pitied, while the one who knows and reaches the same end is unspeakable. Next chapter. From this time on, we applied ourselves diligently to learn our alphabet with Chandler Sen as our instructor. The days passed altogether too quickly, and April was drawing to a close with the greater part of the records still to be translated. But we were consoling ourselves that we would be able to return and finish the translations. Although our friends had translated a large portion of these records for us, they had insisted upon our study of the characters so that we would be able to translate them for ourselves. During the preceding September, we had arranged to meet a party in the Gobi Desert, and they were to accompany us to the site of 3 of the ancient ruined cities, the locations of which are given by some of these records. While we had not as yet seen these records, we had been told of their existence. Those which we had previously seen and which had aroused our curiosity were but copies of the records we had before us. Both of the sets placed the dates of these cities back 200,000 years. It is claimed that the inhabitants were in a high state of civilization, as they knew the arts and crafts and were able to work with metals. That gold was a very common metal, so common that they used it in making drinking vessels and for shoeing their horses. It is claimed that these people had a good command over all the natural forces, as well as their own God-given powers. In fact, the legends, if legends they be, are told therein are quite similar to those of Greek mythology. If the maps are correct, this huge empire covered the greater portion of Asia and extended into Europe as far as the Mediterranean Sea, where France is now located, and the greatest elevation was about 600 feet above sea level. It is claimed that this was a great plain area, very productive and well populated, and a colony of the motherland. There is no question that, if the remains of these cities can be found and uncovered, some very valuable history will be disclosed, as the description the records gave of this country far outshone that of ancient Egypt for pomp and splendor during the dynasties of its 7 kings. Even before the reign of these kings, it is described as being far more prosperous. The people ruled themselves. There were no wars and no vassals or slaves. They unquestionably named their ruler directive principle, and they loved and obeyed that directive principle. These records state that the first king of the first dynasty upsurged the rule from the directive principle and set himself upon a throne as ruler. Time had passed rapidly. We were busy getting everything in readiness to join the expedition, as we were obliged to be on our way in order to keep our appointments in May at the meeting place agreed upon, where we were to replenish our supplies and equip the main expedition for the final journey. Words absolutely fail me when I undertake to record my thoughts and feelings as the time of our departure drew near. Every hour of our stay had been a joy, not one being dull. Although we had been with these people and shared their homes for more than 5 months, the time had passed so rapidly that it seemed but a few days. Yet a world of possibilities had been opened to us. It was as though the door had been thrown wide open. Everyone felt the boundless possibilities, and still we hesitated to step through the door, just as we hesitated to leave these magnificent people whom we looked upon as brothers. I believe there is a time in the life of every mortal when he or she can see the door fully opened, just as each of us saw it that beautiful April morning, and each and every one can see the vast possibilities that may be attained. I am going to ask the readers to throw aside all prejudices for a time, and if they are able to do so, see as we saw. I do not expect you to believe, but I do want you to understand that it is one thing to write about these people, and an entirely different thing just to sit at their feet and listen. It seems that if we would walk boldly up and step through the door, all attainment would be ours. Yet we hesitated. Why was it so? Because we did not fully believe. We allowed tradition to drag us back and close the door. Then we said the hand of fate had closed it to us, but we must come to realize there is no fate, save that which we ourselves allow. Here were a kindly, simple, yet most magnificent people, some of whom for generations and perhaps always had lived just through that door, and that life is practical to them. There is no precedent nor tradition here, nothing but a pure, honest life, well lived and lived right here on this earth. I leave it to the reader to make the contrast. We did not hesitate to leave these dear, kindly souls to whom we had become so attached in the last few months. Yet we knew that other things awaited us, and we looked forward eagerly to them. We bade our friends goodbye that beautiful April morning with cordial handshakes and salutations, amid hearty invitations to come again. With a final goodbye and Godspeed, our faces were turned northward, this time actually to cross the great Gobi, with its tales of terrible hardships as dim visions in our imagination. But we were unafraid, for Emal and Jast were again with us, and Chandler Sin in Nepro's place. To us, who had visited many lands as the company swung along the trail, it was but a part of the day's work. Everyone in our little band was glad to be there. Not one but recognized that a new world had begun to open and unfold. All recognized the remoteness of the country and the hazards of an ordinary trip of this nature. Yet there was that irresistible urge to go on.